Previously, I uploaded a video on how to make a good first team in Dragon City. This was almost a year ago now, and to be honest, a lot has changed because we now have the mythical rarity in the game. So all the previous videos I made still are actually kind of true. However, the order that a new player might have to do it would be a little different now. So for instance, in the previous video, I'd created this little snippet or image that showed the legendary VIPs, heroic, and a breedable or rescue dragon that you might want to have as dragon number 1, dragon number 2, and dragon number 3. However, believe it or not, you can actually have 4 main dragons that you can work on to start your journey. It does require either a little bit of luck or a little bit of extra playtime, but because of the changeover of mythical rarity, instead of focusing on just legendary, heroic, and then any breedable or rescue dragon, instead you can now work on 4 dragons at once. The reason for this being that each of these dragons uses a different Joker orb type. And yes, you can empower dragons via trading, but a big part of empowering a lot of dragons that aren't breedables or rescues is actually going to be via using Joker orbs during Empower Happy Hours. So although it's not perfect, an example of a really possible early starter team that I can see happening right now would be a mini team like this. So Cosmic Detonation Dragon, probably not at E3, probably at E0, High Sparkle from the recent Heroic race, and Barrigard from the currently ongoing Guard event. See, these 3 dragons combined, they don't require anything crazy from the player. Barrigard you could get just from an event chest, High Sparkle just from playing the previous Heroic race, and Cosmic Detonation just by breeding. So a team like this is very, very possible even for pretty much a brand new player. But if you don't have the Barrigard dragon or any guard dragons as of yet, it will probably happen as you continue playing the current guard collection event, for instance. But this is what I can imagine as a very, very common new player team. The only thing that we don't have here is a mythical, and the reason being that the mythicals can be slightly more annoying to get your hands on. But the main thing you need to worry about as a new player isn't really the arena, because nowadays in the arena we have something called skill-based matchmaking. So no matter how bad your dragons are, you'll face opponents that are roughly around as strong as yours. And if you've ever seen some of the images of what happens in Masters 1, 2, and 3 for some players that get there with like level 30 dragons, trust me, you really don't need to worry about arena anywhere near as much as you used to. But the reason why leagues can be a big problem for players is because leagues is difficult, but it does max out at dragon level 40, and you need to be able to do your league battles for various events. So being able to complete every single league battle that you have is really, really important. But you only need up to level 40 enemy dragons that, well, dragons that can beat level 40 enemies, because they will never go beyond level 40. Like if I was to do a battle right now, this team of dragons could probably beat them because we've got a level 60, a level 55. But you could probably beat these enemies with level 45s to level 50s of your own. It's not super duper important what the elemental composition is because it doesn't really matter in leagues. It's more important in arena. But as long as you have dragons that can beat level 40 5-star enemy dragons, that is the main thing you need to focus on. And as soon as you have a team of dragons that can do that in the leagues, then I would highly suggest for you to start power leveling. So like the higher your level is, the more food you'll be getting from food chests, and it does hit that at certain levels. So as soon as you can do all of your league battles, you want to start power leveling, and a really good way to power level is by upgrading building habitats primarily. But until that point, you just need a good selection of first starting dragons. So let's go back to that image of the various different kinds that we have. Now for league battles, you can even use legendaries that don't have a skill if you really want to. As long as they're empowered, you can get the Alliance Chest Dragon and use that quite easily, which is what I did with Morpheus when he was released and his Jokers dropped in the Alliance Chest. However, the better legendaries are going to be those with skills, and that's what we tend to refer to for the dragons as VIPs. It's normally dragon with a skill, because they're normally the ones that get released in passes. And so if we go from left to right, For the legendary selections, the sort of dragons that you could look to obtain to have a good legendary that will last you a very long time would be dragons like The Walking Dead, but I wouldn't suggest trading for those straight away. We have redemption dragons, which will revive anyone once they get knocked out. They're really useful. Berserkers, each of the berserkers do have a different skill, so it depends on the berserker, but they're very nice. The spiked dragons generally are also incredibly useful at times. We've got the Ascended dragons, which there's Family 1 and Family 2. We have the Arcana dragons. Then we've got the Corrupteds like Corrupted Metal. We've got Corrupted Nature. They're not as good as some of the other options, but if you manage to get one somehow or easily via trading, you could use them. We do have dragons like Spore Plasma, and although plasmas are very much counter-specific to vampires, you could still use one, but they're probably one of the weaker ones out of this selection. And then we've got the currently released guard dragons, which I think are very good supports, but to be able to use a guard dragon, you need a good damage dealer. And so, on top of a guard dragon, you could have something like one of the mythical VIPs. And the mythical VIPs, either you can get vampires from things like Dragon TV just by getting lucky, you can try and trade for them once you get some other mythical orbs, or you can get them via collections for dragons such as Deadlock Plasma, Perma Wound Berserker, the Eternal collections, but finishing off the Eternal collections honestly is quite difficult. But the selection of mythical VIPs here, like I recently got Sinful, an extra Sinful drop out of Dragon TV. Prideful, you could even get him out of Grid Event if you get really lucky. So the vampires in particular are still not as difficult to get as the other mythicals, but they are nowhere near as easy to get as they used to be. Because before, when they were legends, you could just do one trade of them and then summon them. You can't do that anymore, I'm afraid, which is the major big difference in all of this. But any of the other mythical VIPs or the family of VIPs that you can see here, any of those you can use any of them, to be honest with you, even Dual Parliament. Now, on top of those, we do also have heroics, and in heroics, we do also have VIP heroics. And yes, generally speaking, the VIP heroics will be the better options. However, you can use any heroic in the game. It doesn't really matter which heroic it is. People say, a Raven. Honestly, if you were desperate, you could actually use Raven. I wouldn't suggest it, but you can actually use Raven as well. But if we're talking about 4-element heroics, you can use pretty much any heroic in the game. The older ones will have very slightly lower attack stats just because of how power scaling has happened. But if they've got the elements that you need or that you want, honestly, you can use them still and it won't make a huge difference. But any heroic in the game, if you can get them empowered once or twice early on, genuinely, you can use them. But we do have Gamma Guard, who's the new release, who I think is going to be really good. High Arcana Judgment. I will be releasing new tier list videos soon as well if you want a really a more in-depth, not really, but more in-depth look at specific heroic VIPs and such, and also legendary and mythical VIPs. But just as a whole, don't worry about it too much because you can get more dragons later. And then the final dragons that you could be working on at the same time are breedables and rescue dragons. Now, if you're brand new, you're not going to have the keys for it. So rescues, yeah, you're probably not going to get E5s, but Deluge is a really, really good rescue dragon. You can see him next to Cosmic Detonation in the middle there. Deluge is he's basically Cosmic Detonation, but the C version, and you can get him via rescue and then also get Cosmic Detonation via breeding. So technically, you could actually have 5 dragons ongoing all at once, and this is to empower them. When I'm talking about working on 4 or 5 dragons at once, I'm talking about actually empowering the dragons. Because you can have E0, empowerment level 0 of everything if you want. But if you want to actually work on specific dragons and get them empowered, take them closer to 70, you can work on up to 5 dragons at once. So, rescues, again, like I said, they're going to be difficult for new players, but actually breeding Cosmic Detonation is incredibly good. Any of the other dragons on this list, you can also breed them. Morpheus is going to be on the more difficult side, any of the time breeding dragons, but Kratos, he's not the best option. I'm just going to throw that out there. But if you are really desperate just for a dragon that is like level 50 or something that has 2 elements, you can breed him. He's really, really easy to breed, but he's also not the best option, but he is an option. So I'm going to leave him in there. But any of the other breedables like Terraformer, you can get him quite easily as well. They do take time to breed, but you can be working on at least one of them at the same time. So this is a general overview of the many options that you have that you can work on as a new player. But as I said, it will come down to a little bit of luck. For instance, in the Wizard's Hollows, we do have vampires, and although Wrathful I wouldn't say is the best vampire out there because of his second skill, if you randomly get Wrathful Vampire because you get lucky in the Wizard's Hollow, well, that is a really good option. Say you've been playing for like, I don't know, 2 weeks, you don't have any other mythical, you could use Wrathful without an issue, truly, because Leech is good enough on its own to be able to use him. But with all of this said and done, you're not going to be an expert at the meta or knowing which dragons are the bestest when you first started playing. And to be honest, you don't need to know straight away. Like I said, especially in Masters Arena, which is the final true reason for people caring about meta, it's all skill-based matchmaking anyway. So you see people that go in there and have like level 30 dragons, but with all of these different VIP dragons and such, it can be a little bit confusing. But at the end of the day, if you just have a legendary with a skill, mythical with a skill, you're probably going to be in a good position. But it's not quite as easy peasy lemon squeezy getting a mythical as it used to be. And if you do want to trade for things like Karma Dragons, I'm just going to warn you that they are very difficult to trade for compared to some other things. If you want to get the Walking Dead Dragons, I wouldn't recommend it because they are incredibly difficult to trade for. Spiked Dragons at the moment are also very overvalued for trading. I would actually recommend waiting to get the Spiked Dragons until their respective events come out, unless you happen to find a very eager Spiked trader that's not having you trade out your heart and soul for them. But, you know, any of these dragons you could use in a team. Any The Walking Dead dragon you could use in a team. Any vampire, even Usurper, you could use in a starting team. But if you do want to know about trading, you can trade with people in your own alliance. But of course, the main way that you'd be finding trades is in Discord servers, Facebook groups, on YouTube or whatever. But that is where you'll get all of your trading from. And it's the reason why I have so many different collection dragons myself. The Ascendeds, for instance, any of those with healing is probably the ones I'd recommend because there is the healing family and then the non-healing side of the family. The healing ones, which include those like Oracle here, you can see Divine Sacrifice deals all damage or damages all opponents and heals all allies. Divine Sacrifice Ascendeds are normally the recommended ones, so there are differences between families as well. But to be honest, for your very first squad of dragons, just to get you going, you could use any of them. But I hope that this little image here gives you a quick little oversight to like some of the options out there. But if you're still confused about all the different dragons, I don't blame you. They've got their own individual skills. You'll get to know them over time. But any of these, you could use them. So yeah, I guess for now, I hope that that makes sense. I at least wanted to update this a little bit for any new players that were a bit confused as of the Mythical update. But Mythical Jokers are a pain to get, so please bear that in mind. But anyway, for now, thank you and take care.